well, how do I get coffee in the tequila without using additives, remaining 100% organic, and not overpowering? We didn't want to be a coffee liqueur.
You get access to a lot of those things. You realize how empty they are if you don't have nobody to share them with.
Yeah, I think again, it's valuing yourself and those that are around you, and understanding, who really supports you. It's a challenge over like the definition of successful, right? Like I feel like so many kids they see successful as a Lamborghini, and it's like it's measured so many different ways, and the reality is only you can dictate what that level of success is, what that looks like.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Making an Impact. This is your host, Gian Lucas. Thank you for joining us today. Our guest today is a man, an entrepreneur, very versatile, who have been ranging from different business ventures, from the medical technology to the spirits on his latest project, Quintaliza Tequila. Beyond his business acumen, there's a story driven by passion, curiosity, and a zest for life. Michael, thank you for coming today.
Yeah, thank you so
we
much.
truly appreciate it. I feel like you have a very inspiring story, not only because you have been driven by your business and entrepreneurship soul, but because I have seen that you were able to transition from two totally different industries, and you are always finding new ways to take advantage of the tools that life gives you. Yeah. So welcome, and we're more than happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. It's fun to be here and have the conversation and kind of dive a little deeper into the story, I guess.
Absolutely. And obviously having the cool brand and very tasteful. I have personally experienced the taste of Quintaliza Tequila. It's Quintaliza. People are struggling to pronounce a little bit. It's a Mexican word, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, so Quintaliza actually doesn't really mean anything, and that was kind of the purpose behind it. It's funny because after, if anyone's ever experienced trying to work a trademark, they know it's a pain in the ass. So Quintaliza is actually was a word mash. Quintal means 100 pounds. It was a form of measurement for coffee, back in the day, I should say. Elisa part was just made up. We took a bunch of different words that we were trying. We were on our third or fourth round of trademarks that were like getting shut down because of conflicts.
Okay.
So our attorney was like, look, just come up with something that doesn't mean anything that would be best. So I loved like the Q and the Z, how it rolled off. And I think that it's got a Spanish undertone to it, but yet I feel like it is easy enough to figure out. Like it's a lot of times, they may butcher it, but at least they attempt it. Versus a lot of times, look at it, some tequila brands, the name is so hard, and they're too embarrassed to say it, and they don't want to say it because they know they're not saying it right. Quintaliza is one that I feel people at least try.
Absolutely. And this is an invitation for everybody watching to try Quintaliza Tequila. This is a very fun experience from a spirits standpoint.
For sure.
Michael, picture your younger self when you were 10 years old. Who is Michael? What does he likes to do? What was his life at that moment?
I think my mom would say I was climbing trees, which I was. I was, batshit crazy. I was a typical 10-year-old just kind of running around wild. And my claim to fame was I jumped from table to table in my art room in elementary school. That was, at the time, I was, just a wild individual, full-blown ADHD, obviously, but undiagnosed at the time probably, and still, and never treated. So that's the best part. But, I had parents that really let my curiosity run wild and let me kind of explore. So I think I was always one of those kids that just loved adventure and loved to definitely challenge, the status quo, so to speak. Like if there was a rule, I tried finding a way to break it or bend it or get close to enough to where, but yeah, I was able to somewhat talk myself out of ever really getting in any kind of trouble. So I was just probably a wildcat for sure.
Interesting, interesting. Are you still a Wildcat today?
Yeah, I think we, I just love pushing the limits and taking something and taking ideas and trying to convert them right into something different. And I've always found, even with my own children now, who are wild, just as I was, just really challenging them to question everything, question why they're doing what they're doing, and understand, is it something that they really want to do, and is there other ways to be different in their approach, right? And to stand out in whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's sports or schooling or anything. Just really just dive deep into the understanding why you're doing it.
And let me, now that you mentioned your parents, let's dive into your early influences. Who would you consider was like an influence in your life that have shaped a lot the person you are today?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of influencers. Actually, I've had probably one of the best support systems, I think. My parents separated at a very young age, but it was never like a trigger point. They always got along very well and supportive of our growths for me and my sister. But I would definitely say like my mom and my stepfather obviously was huge. Of course, my father, who really was kind of led me into the business paths. My stepfather really taught me the patience, and my mom taught me to be tough, right? And
Okay.
but then I had my uncle who was really helpful as well, who helped me, kind of get my first lick at business, and a business that I never really paid for that I got from him, I think, and completely destroyed it in maybe 2 months. Took, I don't know how many years, maybe 12 or 15 years of his life, and flushed it down the tubes within 2 months of me, just because of being young and not really understanding what I was doing. But he allowed me to learn that lesson, and I think that's actually one of the reasons why I was able to grow, from that point, knowing that I really fucked up and how do I move forward, right? So
And that's a very important remark. When you start a path, you expect everything, like what we said, on paper, everything sounds amazing.
Right.
But when you get into action, you start getting the roadblocks and the challenges. And I feel like that experience, it's, I would say from the losses, you gain more knowledge than from the wins, obviously. And you learn how to stay aware
Right.
for the next challenge. And your uncle is from your mother's side or
My mom's side, yeah.
your mom's side.
Yeah.
Are you more connected with your mother's side or your dad's side?
Probably my mom's side more. My father's side, there's not as many of them. They weren't really, they were a little bit more, independent, to say to speak. But no ill will or bad blood. My dad's brother, Tom, I'm really very close with, and Raymond as well. But we just see my mom's side probably a lot more. Even growing up more, we probably just hung out with them a little bit more. And I think that, again, like a huge support system. So I wouldn't take away anything from anybody within the family. I think they all had their own, advice, so to speak, and things that I've learned. I know my dad's my dad's brother gave me a lot of help in like the psychological aspect of things, how to view different certain situations that have come out a little bit. I normally wouldn't have taken that approach. So everyone has a little bit to offer, I think.
Absolutely.
And it takes a village, right? When you're trying to create anything, whether it's, even if you work for somebody, just in life in general, it takes a village, and it takes the communication. If you don't have a big family, that's okay. If you have a friend, right? Or, it's good just to bounce ideas. And a game that me and my father used to play was, let me tell you something about you that you don't know. And I love that. At the time when you're younger, it's like you have to really build up a thick skin, because he's going to say some shit that you're going to be like, what are you talking? Immediately you want to get defensive. But the reality is that the outside perspective of other people sometimes are viewed differently than what you actually mean to cast. So, you may think you're presenting one thing, or you may act or say, you feel like you're presenting it a certain way, but it's coming across completely different. So it's very beneficial to have somebody in your life, I think, that helps you with those difficult challenges. And you have to be obviously open to hear criticism, because again, without that failure, without that criticism, you don't ever learn. And as an entrepreneur, there's no really good school for it. And the reality is, the school for entrepreneurship is being open to criticism and being open to failure, and understanding that those failures are what's going to help you get to the next level. And it's just part of the process.
It's part of the process. And now that you're talking about failures, it makes me think a lot of challenges. Early in our lives when we are young, even though our parents will give us, or our family, friends, the street sometimes will give us the tools that we think are gonna help us navigate through the ocean of life. It becomes really challenging when you are facing a problem and you know you don't have the tools and you need to start solving the issue while you are learning a new skill.
Right.
So, can you remember how you overcame the failure that you mentioned of failing your uncle's business? I use that example as one of the failures, but in reality, it's a win. You win knowledge,
Yeah.
and I think it's the same for every single case. But can you navigate us through how you overcame that situation, not only on the professional and financial side, because obviously
Yeah.
that's what business are for, but your family was involved. So how you mitigate the damage
For sure.
of the business?
Yeah, I use an analogy a lot about entrepreneurship of like in relation to snowboarding or skiing. There's two paths down the hill. There's the groomed path, and then there's like the woods, right? And I feel like the groomed path, though it can be difficult at times, for the most part, you can get down, you can kind of see an obstacle. I feel like that's sometimes with people that have the good jobs, the careers, and salaries. But the woods are definitely entrepreneurs. Like you just don't know what's going to come, and you go into these woods, and there's obstacles along the way, and you fall sometimes, and you got to get back up. But the reality is that you have to depend on your abilities and the confidence within knowing that you can get back up and you can make it down this hill and you can conquer any obstacle that gets in your way. And the more trees you come across, the more you're able to navigate that obstacle. You start learning from the one you just fell on or the one you just hit, different ways to position yourself. So I use that analogy a lot. And I think that, the biggest thing for me was always just trying to have that confidence, right? There's a difference obviously between arrogance and confident. Knowing that I can withstand anything, I can get through it, I'll make it because I have faith in like who I am as an individual and understanding how I can clear my mind and just focus on the task in front of me. And I think that opened my eyes when that first business and family, it was a tough lick, right? Because you got your family involved and disappointments and stuff. But the reality is that having again, they never really beat me down too bad to where I didn't have the confidence to stand back up. And fast forward to now, he's a part of this brand. He's an investor, and he's helped me in a lot of other things. And there was never a bad blood at the time, about it or anything like that. But it really helped me navigate through it by having the support system and saying I can get up and do this again. If that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And obviously, it gives you some room to be grateful. You know what I mean? Like it's a blessing to have people like that. And I think every human needs to surround itself. Some people might be lucky with their family, blood family. Some others might have to look for family or shelter outside their house because they live a nightmare inside, and it's part of life. You know what I mean? But I think eventually people need to surround itself with people who will first support them and second hold them accountable. You know what I mean? It's very important.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head right there. And the reality is that you can have the best support system in the entire world, but if you don't have the confidence within it, won't matter. It's one thing like you have, you could sit there and you could hear from your family, oh, you're doing a great job, or you're awesome, or congratulations, or whatever. But if you don't really believe it, it doesn't really matter. And so I really will always stress home to my children a lot about just building self-awareness and self-confidence within and challenging yourself and really knowing if you put the 100% effort into it or not, right? I tell the kids all the time, like if I go in the other room and I ask you to do 20 push-ups, I walk into the room, shut the door and come back in, and I ask you, did you do 20 push-ups? Whatever you say, I'm going to take as truthful, right? But the reality is that if you didn't do the 20 push-ups, you're only hurting you. You're not hurting me. It doesn't really matter. It just you're lying to yourself. So in business, it's the same way. In entrepreneurship, like if you put in the effort, you will get the results. But if you bitch out and you don't put in the effort, or you come up with excuses, oh, I don't have a support system, or nobody else believes in me. If you don't build the confidence within, it won't go anywhere. You won't do anything.
I agree 100%. Now that you talk about business, let's go through this. I'm very intrigued to know this because I did my homework, obviously, and I saw that you started on the medical field, on the medical imaging field. How do you, first off, when was that idea born? The idea of starting at the medical imaging or medical technology industry.
So I actually started working with my dad when I was younger. So my dad was in the medical industry, and started at around 98. But that was like 2 years before graduating high school. I graduated high school in 2000. And it was like something I never wanted to do. Anything I could. So I had the mobile company, I told you, detailing company that destroyed, and then actually worked at the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, which was like the box offices for like the symphonies and stuff for a little bit. That wasn't what I wanted to do. And ultimately fell back on working with my dad for a little bit and learning it and just working on machinery. And I found it very interesting to work with my hands on equipment and learning, because I originally wanted to be a mechanic. So I did enjoy the engineering aspect of it. And then it led into just understanding how I can sell these parts and I can service different hospitals. And it was kind of like one of those things I just started doing more of. My father wasn't one for handouts. It was, he had a schooling that he taught people. It was $4,500. I had to pay for that class. Pay him off, I should say. I didn't have the money at the time. And started really, learning the process and sat in the class. But it wasn't for long before I was teaching the class.
Okay.
I really grasped it pretty quickly and, just wanted to started being a little bit more interested in it. The sales side, the brokerage side was pretty interesting. Fast forward, I still have, that company, and we still service equipment. We now do MRIs and X-ray equipment, and nationwide, we do service contracts nationwide. So it's definitely scaled a lot larger than what it was when it started. And it wasn't really the anticipation, because it wasn't something that I thoroughly enjoyed. So I think that it was always a means for me to do other passions. And that led into various other, projects that I started.
And now talking about the different projects, how did you transition? What's the connection between the first venture with your dad that you were learning about sales and servicing the machinery of the equipment of the medical
Right.
imaging and everything, to the spirits industry and the distribution of them?
Yeah, so it's kind of, again, just the path wasn't written. So in 2008, I bought a restaurant in Jensen Beach called Bagel Break. And we scaled that from one location into 3 locations in a matter of a couple years. I really loved the restaurant aspect of it, but after 10 years of doing the restaurant and doing medical as well, it just got very tiresome. We had a lot of employees, a lot of management. So ended up, my mom and my brother now run those stores, and still in the family, which is great. But that led me into trying to find some real estate investments, which I still kind of dabble in. My good friend was starting a tequila company and starting an online white glove service, and they needed a importer and a distributor for that product. And I, just knowing the red tape for a restaurant side, kind of naturally fell into learning, okay, well, if I could, get these, this stuff for you, these different licenses, could I be your importer? So again, fell into that, kind of started doing that, learning the process. And I really was interested in it. It's fun. It's a really fun, business. You get to hang out with a bunch of cool, people. You're meeting a lot of great brands and have obviously great tequila. I actually didn't even like tequila when I first started doing it. Their brand was kind of like a gateway drug for me into tequilas. So I kind of learned a lot about that. And that just kind of got me into the importing, and then got me thinking of how could I create something different, that there's just so many tequila brands that have come to the market. And Quintaliza was like a 2-year R&D project that I designed in my kitchen to really try and stand out and be different.
where does the idea? I know you're a
A
partner.
fast track of what I did.
Yeah, it's a very fast track. But now that we're talking about Quintaliza, which is your latest project, it comes to my mind a very interesting aspect because I love coffee. That my family, I have Italian heritage, so coffee for us is a tradition.
Right.
And I'm Hispanic, so it's almost like inevitable.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drink coffee my entire life. But it's interesting because when you think of coffee and alcohol, you think of espresso martini, for example. But when it comes to coffee and tequila, it's a different variation of what we are used to. It's very unconventional, which I think is an innovative way to get into the market. Can you tell us where the coffee relationship with your tequila brand was born?